Hi, my name is Suze Ellis. I am a blogger, educator, and sex writer in Hamilton, Ontario. I mainly talk about pleasure, autonomy, self-love, and dating culture and sex culture. So, Me Too, a social movement, I would say, around talking about consent and rape culture in social media specifically. Someone was bringing to light a story of, I think it was like some type of rape culture incident that had happened, so it's sexual assault, rape, saying like a lot of us have been through that, and that's kind of like the words like where Me Too came from, because it's like, yes, like we want people to stand in solidarity together, and that's kind of like the hashtag started from there, and it blew up, especially with like a lot of what was happening with like in Hollywood right now, talking about sexual predators in high up positions, and in a lot of other industries too, because every industry has these own issues. So basically, like, I mean, to me, it's showing empowerment and solidarity with people and sharing stories that make you feel more connected, and to normalize talking about the issues that are happening behind the scenes that a lot of people aren't addressing.
So I am Cheyenne Federiconi, and I am the CEO, artist and designer behind a brand called Sugar Bones, which is also my artist name, and I do a lot of pop-up shops. I design products like pins, patches, slowly getting into clothing and accessories, and every once in a while I'll do an art show where I specialize in painting and sculpting. I guess it's about really people coming together and sharing their experiences in something that most people are told either not to talk about or to keep them themselves, or something that's too heavy that people want to hear about. So I feel with stuff like that, and when you're talking about rape culture and all that kind of stuff, there's so many ins and outs and people that find loopholes and all this different kind of stuff, or the even definition of what rape means. And I feel like the Me Too movement really draws attention to the fact that there are things that happen to a lot of women, and the majority of women, even if you are dealing with small things during the day like catcalling or just like sexual harassment on the street, little things like that that can really add up to people feeling unsafe and feeling like they are dealing with sexual assault or sexual harassment during their day. So yeah, I think that the movement itself really just brings people together and makes people feel like they're not alone.
I've got my friend Sarah Bryn Holiday, who she talks a lot about traumas in relation to sexuality and how sexuality has helped her through her traumas, and she also talks about calling out companies a lot, because there's a lot of like sex companies which you think you'd be surprised about, like there's but like a lot of sex companies in the industry are not that great in terms of talking about consent, in terms of like promoting pleasure. Like there's a lot of like misogynistic ads out there, which like we do our best as bloggers to like call out, because like we have our own like back channels of like communications, of like we have groups, Slack groups, where we talk about stuff, and if something comes up, we're like, hey, let's all jump on this and call them out, which has kind of like promoted change within companies to take down misogynistic and even like really like rapey like ads that they've put out there.
For a while now, actually, when I first started my project, Fight Like a Girl, that was back in, I think, 2015. And even before that, when I was doing artwork based on feminism and social change and just commentary on the way that people act and different things in our society, there was always like a really strong movement of artists, especially female artists, that would talk and make artwork about their different experiences and stuff like that. So I think that it's really important to visualize and to create work that people can relate to, not only in the sense that it has to do with anything that's about the Me Too movement, but outside of that, just any artwork at all that you're going to relate to is going to help influence you in your life and make you feel like you're connected to something. Pieces of artwork have been known to just change people's complete ideals about stuff. So I think that it's important to put stuff out there that you're constantly creating something that is going towards bettering, educating, and making people feel like they can connect or relate to something.
one of the negatives of the Me Too movement that I've noticed is it's kind of forcing survivors to talk about their own experiences. And I found that when I was on Twitter, when the majority of like hashtag Me Too was happening, a lot of my friends were like, people should be putting content warnings on their stuff just because it's super triggering to be like, I am exhausted with seeing this stuff all day in my face. They're like, I wish people would just put a content warning and just be, hey, content warning, sexual abuse, Me Too, because then you could opt out of that conversation. And I feel like it forced a lot of people to confront that stuff in a way that may not have been as healthy for them, especially when it's like there's a lot better ways to, I don't know, you shouldn't be forced to confront anything. And I know some people who had like kind of opposite opinions on that, where they're like, well, you should be talking about it, so I want you to we want to force you to talk about your trauma. But it's like, that's not the way anybody heals. Like, you should be taking your own time to deal with your own thing.
I like to put a lot of humor into my artwork. So when I do designs that do have empowering messages behind them, I like to make them either interconnected with pop culture, which is something that everyone has gone through, nostalgia, stuff like that, influences with growing up. A lot of my stuff comes from cartoons, Disney, magical girl animes like Sailor Moon, Cardcaptors, stuff like that. All things that like I really soaked in when I was younger, which has influenced my style. So now as an adult and someone who's dealing with adult problems, so for instance, one of my favorite pieces I did was 3 hearts, and it says no does not mean convince me. And that's one of my favorite pieces because it's such a common misconception that it's so easy to just say no to someone, whereas the majority of people that try and say no or are afraid to say no or are thought of like brainwashed in their head, women, that you have to be polite, right? Or that you're too afraid. So when women do say no, there's always people that will try and push you or say like, come on, that kind of idea. So that was one of the pieces that I did that is my favorite because I think that resonates and it deals with a lot of different stuff where people are saying no and then it turns into, well, once you say no and your no is ignored, how do you go from there? What happens afterwards? How do you continuously say no without starting a fight or something that could possibly put you into a violent situation? You know what I mean? So that was one of my favorite pieces.
With the Me Too stuff, people talking about it, that is a change because we were not talking about it as publicly before. So I think even just like the fact that like we're having a conversation, that is a change in itself. So I think it is like there is possibility for it to actually like influence how people are thinking about stuff. And if, especially like for like abusers out there who are like, or like people who are like, I'm gonna get called out. It's like, well, you should be worried. If you are worried that you're gonna get called out, you should be worried that you're gonna get called out.
The most important thing for me as an artist especially, and someone that works as like a social media person that's always on, interested in branding and stuff like that, I think authenticity is something that's really important because you see a lot of big brands or like celebrities and stuff like that coming out and hashtagging Me Too and kind of like attaching themselves to a movement, whereas beforehand they never spoke up or said anything towards the movement. I'm talking about like big brands that will like hashtag Me Too as in like, hey guys, like we're part of this too, we support you. But before this happens, before it becomes a popular trending thing, it's kind of silent. And you can really tell what kind of celebrities and brands stand behind that message and which ones are just doing it to gain like that pat on the back, like, hey guys, we're with you too.